Imagine a still desert night. Suddenly, a streak of light bursts across the sky, followed by a deafening roar. The ground shakes, the air fills with heat and smoke. An elder points and whispers, "That fire devil came from the sun." This isn't a special effect from a blockbuster film. It's a story told by Aboriginal people across Australia. They witnessed stars fall, saw the earth scarred by fire, and watched their laws change overnight. In this video, we'll revisit those nights of cosmic fire and explore how oral traditions preserve the memory of real meteor impacts. By the end, you'll see the night sky and the stories it holds with fresh eyes. So stay with us. Hit like, share with a mate, and subscribe if you haven't already, because what follows might just change the way you look up. Australia is home to hundreds of Aboriginal groups, each with its own language and cosmology. These cultures have passed down oral traditions for tens of thousands of years, weaving accounts of ancestors, animals, laws, landforms, and even geological events into songlines and stories. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, and meteor falls all appear in their mythologies. Westerners once dismissed these tales as myth, but in recent decades, researchers have started to realize that many stories contain kernels of historical truth. The field of geomythology examines how oral traditions preserve memories of natural events. In Australia, scientists like Dwayne Hamaka are studying Aboriginal accounts of meteorite falls and cosmic impacts to see if they line up with real craters and meteor finds. Hamaka argues that these stories aren't just metaphor. They may be eyewitness descriptions of events witnessed thousands of years ago. He believes they could even lead scientists to undiscovered meteorites. In this episode, we'll explore several of these tales. We'll begin with the famous fire devil of Henbury, move through stories of life descending from the sky, visit the rainbow serpent of Wolf Creek, and uncover how stories served as warnings and laws. Along the way, you'll meet elders whose grandparents witnessed fire falling from the sky and scientists who learned to listen to what those elders said. The journey will reveal a profound connection between dreaming stories and scientific data, and show why, when the sky falls, the earth remembers. For the Luritja people of Central Australia, the Henbury region south of Alice Springs is a place of fear and respect. Nearly a dozen circular depressions lie scattered across the rocky plain. Rain fills them after storms, but elders warn their grandchildren, never drink that water. An old story says that if you do, a fire debil, a fire devil, will fill you with iron. This warning isn't idle superstition. It is connected to an event that happened roughly 4,700 years ago, when a large, iron-filled meteorite slammed into Earth, broke apart, and scattered fragments across the desert. In 1921, a cattleman named James M. Mitchell rode to the Henbury craters with an Aboriginal guide. Mitchell wanted to inspect the odd pits he'd heard about. When they approached, the guide refused to go any closer. He told Mitchell that this was where a fire devil had come out of the sky and killed everything. 13 years later, Mitchell returned with a different guide. By then, a prospector had found iron fragments in the craters, and scientists had connected the site to a meteor. Yet the new guide still wouldn't go near the pits. He said his people wouldn't camp within 2 miles, wouldn't approach closer than half a mile, and wouldn't collect water from the craters. His grandfather, he explained, had actually seen the fire devil come from the sun. Think about that. A man in the early 20th century recounting his grandfather's memory of a blazing object descending from the sky thousands of years earlier. Dwayne Hamaka suggests that this tradition could be a living memory over 400-500 years old. The fear of drinking water from the craters wasn't irrational. In a world before geology, the ancestors created a law to keep children away from pools contaminated with metallic fragments. Even today, locals call the place Kandimalal, meaning the place of the falling star, and treat it with caution. This story is one of the clearest examples of an oral tradition preserving an actual meteor strike. The Henbury story isn't unique. Across Australia, different nations tell of stars falling to Earth. Some accounts describe cosmic impacts, others link meteorites to the origin of life. What ties them together is the interplay between oral tradition and scientific discovery. Aboriginal oral traditions emphasize that the dreaming isn't just a myth, it's a way of recording history. In the words of anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner, myths may refer to half-remembered natural catastrophes like meteoric showers. Researchers have shown that oral texts can serve as historical records of geological events, which means they might help identify new impact sites. Dwayne Hamaker's team looked at stories from Arrernte and Luritja communities near Alice Springs. They found that these groups had a strong focus on meteors and impact craters. One tale speaks of life coming from two rocks that fell from the sky. Hamaker recalls hearing elders describe two stars falling to the ground that were like Adam and Eve, bringing life to Earth. Another story talks about the egg of life accidentally dropped from the sky, breaking open and seeding the Earth with living things. Science now recognizes that comets and meteors can carry amino acids, the building blocks of life, to Earth. In this sense, the old story about an egg falling from the sky anticipates a modern scientific hypothesis. Researchers also note that many Aboriginal communities link meteors with spiritual justice. In Arnhem Land, the Yolngu say that stars fall when taboos are broken, the cosmic equivalent of a lightning bolt warning miscreants. Such stories encoded ethical law into the sky. Hamaker points out that early European scientists refused to accept that rocks could fall from the sky. For Indigenous Australians, the reality was obvious. They'd seen it happen and built it into their cosmology. Modern geomythology is now catching up, showing that what was once dismissed as myth may hold accurate astronomical and geological information. Move west to the Kimberley region of Western Australia and you'll find another crater, Wolf Creek, known locally as Kandimalal. The Jaru people tell how the crater marks the place where the rainbow serpent, whose eyes appear as a meteor, crashed to Earth. In this story, the serpent traveled through the Milky Way, sweeping across the sky, and then plunged downward, gouging out the ground and leaving behind a circular scar. Modern scientists date Wolf Creek crater to around 300,000 years ago, but Jaru traditions don't focus on the age. They emphasize the law. This is a sacred site created by a cosmic being, and it must be respected. In the Arrernte and Luritja traditions, meteors are sometimes described as fire devils or spirits seeking vengeance for breaches of sacred law. The same fear appears in the Henbury story. Do not go near the crater, or the fire devil will rain iron on you. Another Luritja tale says that a man once cut sacred wood without permission. In response, a star fell, killing him and his family. These accounts might sound harsh, but they functioned like a legal code. By linking destructive cosmic events to wrongdoing, they encouraged obedience to social rules and respect for country. Stories of falling stars also intersect with creation. In one account from the Western Arrernte, a fiery star fell to Earth carrying two beings who became the ancestors of all people. They landed near a waterhole where they created plants and animals. Another song recounts how a star dropped an egg of life, which broke open and spilled creatures across the land. When asked about these tales, a senior elder explained that they're not meant to be literal science. They're a way of teaching children about life's origins and the importance of water. Yet it's hard not to smile when scientists now confirm that meteorites bring organic compounds to Earth. These stories aren't random. As Hamaker notes, Traditions about meteors cluster near real craters. He and his colleagues catalogue dozens of accounts describing fire from the sky, burnt ground, and unusual rocks. They argue that, while not every story refers to an actual impact, some clearly do. Recognizing which is which requires listening carefully to the people who hold the stories and understanding the context. One Arunta man told Hammaker that his great-grandfather saw the Henbury fire devil come from the sun. When modern scientists finally acknowledged that a meteoroid created the craters, they were basically confirming what the elder already knew. These stories served practical purposes. Aboriginal societies used the sky as a map and a moral compass. The emu in the sky taught people when to harvest eggs. Meteor stories taught people where not to go. The Henbury and Wolf Creek craters are examples of how geography and law entwined. The tradition forbidding people from drinking crater water may have protected them from contamination by iron-nickel fragments. Similarly, by connecting bad behavior with falling stars, elders instilled caution and respect. Aboriginal lands are dotted with avoidance zones connected to cosmic events. Some communities believe that picking up meteorites invites misfortune. Others say that stars fall as punishment for murder. In the Noongar country of Western Australia, elders speak of fireballs that appear in the sky to warn of wrongdoing. These stories function like cosmic police, reminding listeners that actions have consequences. In many cases, the exact details of the falling star, its size, color, direction, are less important than the lesson. Respect the law, honor the ancestors, and treat the land properly. Interestingly, some warnings might also encode environmental knowledge. If a meteor exploded and left glassy fragments or poisonous gases, telling children to avoid the area would be wise. Without scientific terminology, the only way to convey that knowledge was through story. So, a tale about a fire devil might be less about supernatural punishment and more about environmental health. Elders used creative imagery, devils, serpents, eggs of life, to make sure the message stuck. Modern researchers are beginning to appreciate the depth of Aboriginal sky knowledge. Scientists once scoffed at the idea that rocks could fall from space. They insisted that craters like Henbury or Wolf Creek were volcanic or artificial. Only in the 1930s did Western science accept meteor impacts. Aboriginal people, however, had integrated that fact into their worldview for millennia. As Hammaker notes, traditions could lead to the discovery of meteorites and impact sites previously unknown to Western science. Geomythology has already yielded results. When researchers investigated the Henbury and Wolf Creek traditions, they found that the stories match the physical evidence. The craters were created by meteoroids roughly when the stories suggest. Elders who guided early explorers away from the craters were effectively preserving a scientific record. Hammaker and his colleagues believe similar stories may point to yet undiscovered impact sites. By interviewing custodians and comparing narratives to satellite imagery, they hope to find ancient scars hidden beneath sand and scrub. Importantly, collaboration between scientists and indigenous communities must be based on respect. Many traditions are sacred and not for public dissemination. Some knowledge is restricted to initiated members of a community. Researchers must therefore work with custodians to understand what can be shared. When done properly, this collaboration benefits everyone. Scientists gain clues to meteorite impacts. Communities gain recognition of their intellectual heritage. A striking example comes from the Henbury region itself. After decades of debate, the Northern Territory government recognized the cultural significance of the site and worked with Luritja custodians to manage visitor access. Tourists now learn the story of the fire devil alongside the geological facts. For many, seeing the scarred earth while hearing about the blazing star that fell changes their perspective. It brings home the idea that science and story aren't enemies. They're partners in understanding the land. When the sky fell over Henbury, a roar echoed across the desert. A blazing object split apart, scattered iron, and left scars that still pockmark the ground. Elders watched, told their children, and wove the memory into a law. Avoid the crater, respect the fire devil, remember the star that came from the sun. When the rainbow serpent crashed at Wolf Creek, the Jaru marked the site as sacred and painted the story into art. When Arunta storytellers sang about life eggs and stars as ancestors, they invited listeners to imagine cosmic origins. These tales might sound fantastical, but they preserve memories of real events and encode environmental wisdom. Modern science is finally catching up. Geologists date the Henbury craters to about 4,700 years ago and the Wolf Creek crater to about 300,000 years. Astronomers confirm that comets and meteors can deliver organic molecules to Earth. Geomythologists propose that Aboriginal stories can lead to new discoveries. None of this diminishes the cultural power of the stories. On the contrary, it enhances our appreciation of them. The dreaming is not a fossilized myth. It is a living archive of knowledge, ethics, and history. So next time you're camping under the southern sky and you see a meteor flash, take a moment. Think about the people who watched such flashes tens of thousands of years ago. Consider that somewhere a story might already explain what you saw and why it matters. When the sky falls, it leaves more than a crater. It leaves a songline. Listen to those songlines, and you'll discover a world where science and story meet. Thanks for watching this deep dive into Australia's cosmic fires. If this story broadened your horizons, tap the like button. It helps others discover our channel. Share it with someone who loves stargazing or history. Drop a comment below. Have you ever visited a meteorite crater or heard a dreamtime story about falling stars? We read every comment and would love to hear your experiences. And if you want more stories that connect science, culture, and country, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next journey. Every like, share, and comment keeps these stories alive. Cheers!